So step one, we need to divide our coloured sheets of paper into different fractions so that we can show equivalent fractions. Now step one, on every colour, what we need to do is we're going to put our ruler at the top of each page and we're going to draw a line. And you can see that I've done that on each page. I've done it on the dark blue, I've done it on the light blue, I've done it on the red, and I've done it on the pink. Now, I did say there is a yellow sheet. The yellow sheet is for those students that want to challenge themselves to work with a harder fraction. Now, when I've drawn my ruler line at the top of each page, I then start to divide my page. Step one, I divided my light blue page into halves. Now you might ask yourself, how do I work out what's a half? Now what I did, I took my ruler and I measured the length of the page. And the length of the page is exactly 29 centimetres and 6 millimetres. Now another way of saying 29 centimetres and 6 millimetres is 296 millimetres. And we need to chop 296 in half. Who can work out what's half of 296? So that was our pause to see if anyone could work that out. Now I can tell you half of 300 is 150. Half of 4 is 2. So half of 296 is 148. And all I did, I took my ruler, I measured from the 0 up to 140, 145, 146, 147, 148, and I put a little mark on my page. Then I go to the other side and I mark 148 again. And the reason I mark it at both sides is so that I know I'm going to draw a straight line. Now when I've drawn my straight line, I simply cut my page. Now when I cut it, I stop at that very first line we drew. And the reason for that is that area on our page is where we are going to be putting glue. Okay, so that is our top sheet or our second sheet. Same again. This time we need to divide our page into 4 pieces. Now again, 296 divided by 4. Different strategies we can use to work that out. I will quickly, seeing as we've done division, I have 296, and I know this is going to be upside down now. So I better come back to the other side of the camera, and I better get a permanent marker. 296 into 4 equal groups. Now that's a big number which is a bit tricky to work out. That's okay. I know that half, because we've worked out half already, was 148. Now that makes it a bit easier because a quarter is a half of a half. So I can work out half of 14 is 7, half of 8 is 4, so half of 148 is 74. 74, 74, 74, 74. So now when I rule my lines, I am going to be measuring 74 millimetres. The other way we can say 74 millimetres is 7 centimetres and 4 millimetres, but 74. So again, like we did with the blue sheet, 74, 74, 74, and then I go to the other side. Why? So that I'm going to rule straight lines. When I have my straight lines, I cut. Again, I cut up to that first line because that first line is where our glue strip will go. Cut, 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 cut. Now, let's have a look what we've done so far. We have our whole, we have our half, and that will be glued on. Now we have our quarters. Okay, so all these sheets are the same. So we can lift up 1 quarter, 1/4 is not equivalent with anything under there, but have a look at this. If I lift up 2/4, it's the same as 1/2. 2/4 is the same as 1/2. If I lift up all 4/4, I will know that that's the same as 2/2, and 2/2 is the same as 1/2. So that means my 4/4 is the same as 1/2. Now the hardest one to do was definitely the 1/8, because if we have a look at this now, if we want to go 1/8, we need to go 1/2 of a 1/2 of a 1/2 again. And 1/2 of 74 is 37. 37 right across. And 37 millimeters is a very hard measurement. No, 37 is not hard at all. Anyway, forget that point. 37 isn't hard. So we find 37, 37, right across, and then right across the bottom as well. And we can cut. So we cut the strip, cut the strip, cut the strip, cut the strip. And so again, you cut these strips all the way to the top because that's where we are applying our glue. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We have our cut strips, Actually, I think we should put our big ones on top and our smallest ones on the bottom. So forget that bit that I said at the start. I'm not going to redo this whole video. Our blue is going to be our back page, but our yellow will be our top page, just to protect our booklet. So we're going to have our halves. We can lift up a 1/2 and see that a 1/2 is 2/4. We'll be able to lift up our 2/4 and see that it is 4/8. Okay, and I'll show you how to glue. Very, very simply, boys and girls. I will put a glue strip. Make sure there's something on your desk so the glue doesn't go all over the desk. The cleaners don't like that at all. One strip of glue across there. And then I place my 1/8. Remember, I would have cut these all up, but I haven't cut them at the moment. Right across, done. That's as hard as it gets. Then I put my glue on the pink, and I will glue on my red. Then I put on my glue, and I put on my blue, and then last but not least, my yellow, which is my hole. Now there is one final part to this little activity. I'd like you to label each part so you understand how our fractions work and how equivalent fractions work. So we're going to start with our heading. And here's hoping I spell it correctly. Equivalent fractions. You could even put a bubble around that. So who can remember what we call our first page? Our first page is our hole. And how many holes do we have? We have one hole. Now fold up my one hole right up to where that pencil line was, and I can put a nice crease across there. So one hole equals how many halves? 1/2, 1/2. Then I fold up to that line again. My one hole, which equals 2 halves, also equals 4/4. 3, 4. So now I can turn my flip chart back and I can see that 1/2 is the same as 2/4. Who can guess how many 1/8s are going to be the same as 2/4? Let's have a peek. 2, There's 4. Who got that one right? 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, and so on. You'll keep doing that right across the page, folding up to our line. Remembering, boys and girls, that you do cut these strips. I've stopped at just that first one. 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. Now you have a fantastic tool that can help you with equivalent fractions for halves, quarters, and eighths.